Hey readers, Miss Hans here. Just want to remind you of our last historical fiction lesson that we did together. I am not going to be teaching you a new lesson today. I'm just going to show you how you can take your work from yesterday and revise it to make it even better. So let's start just by reviewing our teaching point, which was readers turn to nonfiction to deepen understanding by synthesizing information from a nonfiction text and the historical fiction text. So our first job was to find a nonfiction text about the time period. Our second goal was to think, how did the nonfiction text help me to understand the plot better? And our third goal was to think about who's making the rules and who's in charge based on this time period. So we added a new note to our growing chart of readers of historical fiction, and that was turn to nonfiction to deepen understanding. Here are my class slides. When you guys were done watching that mini lesson, you went and you clicked on this and it brought you over to the assignment. So the teaching point was here and the success criteria. So I just want to show you a sample of student work, and let's think about what is something that worked well for this reader and what is something that the reader needs to improve on. So we're going to be looking at some writing about reading. Follow me. Here is the sample student work we're going to be looking at. And let's just start by thinking about something great that she did. I noticed that she gave us the title of the nonfiction book that she read. So some of you were missing the title. Just make sure you have it there. So she wrote The Great Depression and the World War II in Epic. So that's where she found her book. And I'm noticing that she kind of wanted to start by naming some of the similarities between the two texts, but she didn't. But it's great that her thinking went to that, because I know that when we are doing cross-text synthesis work, one of the things you might be asking yourself is, how are the two texts similar and how are the two texts different? But then she started to use the sentence starter here. The nonfiction text taught me that both stories have the same old times where people didn't have that much food or money to buy. So here's the claim that she's making. And then she wrote, this connects to the part when Bud was hungry in chapter 11, and in the Great Depression, I guess she meant on page 7. 1933 to 1941, the Depression deepens. So one thing that I know that this writer's doing really well is she's being super specific about what part of the book she's talking about. She's talking about chapter 11 of Bud Not Buddy, and she's talking about page 7 of the Great Depression nonfiction text. But let's take a look at her text evidence. 1933 to 1941. That doesn't seem like strong enough evidence. It's just something that you kind of just found and plopped in there. So something that would make this work even stronger, a next step would be specific in your evidence. Give a line that really shows that people are without food or money. So let's go back to that text and let's see if we can find a better example. So I'm just gonna delete this off of this for her. Delete that. And because I'm the teacher, it just shows that I'm saying delete that. So it says this connects to the part when Bud was hungry in chapter 11 and in the Great Depression on page 7. And we'll just write, it says, instead of saying the subheading, we can just find a specific line from that text that supports that claim she's making. So follow me, let's go find a better line. I found the book and I found this subheading that she was talking about, and let's see if there's a better line that supports her claim. I peer closely at the yellowed photograph. There are so many people in the bread and soup lines. They have sad faces and ragged clothing. Another photograph shows the grim conditions of one of the homeless camps that sprang up across the country. Many people call the camps Hooversville because they were angry that the president was not making the situation better. So already I can tell that maybe a better line I can include in my writing would be, instead of saying that subheading, I can add the line here where it says the people had sad faces and ragged clothing. And maybe I can go even before that. There are so many people in the bread and soup line and they have sad faces and ragged clothing. That's very specific. That would make this writing even stronger. So let's go back and add it in. I'm going to go ahead and add in the line that we just found. So it says that the soup kitchen lines were very long and the people had sad faces and ragged clothing. Wow, now that is so much more specific than what I had before, and we just fixed the spelling error there. Now it doesn't just say in page 7, now I can clearly back that up with an example. Now, what could be another thing that we do? Well, if we found an example from the Great Depression nonfiction book, we should also find an example from Bud Not Buddy that shows that. So let's go back to chapter 11 and let's find an example from there. In chapter 11, we find Bud having breakfast with Lefty Lewis's family. And I thought this line right here really proved to us how Bud has been hungry a lot, just like those people that have been waiting at soup kitchens, like the nonfiction text told us. And so I thought maybe an example we could put in there would be right over here. I watched to see how much everyone took and tried to take the same. Then I started to watch how much food the 2 kids put on their fork every time, so I wouldn't look like a pig. So this clearly shows us that he doesn't even know how to have a normal meal because he's not used to it. He's used to not having enough food and having to go to these soup kitchens to be able to eat. So I'm gonna copy that example, and if you're working on a laptop, you can hit edit and copy, and then you can paste your example right into your writing. So let's go back into, I'm gonna go ahead and type in, according to Bud Not Buddy, it says, and we're gonna drop that line that we found right there. I just pasted it over here. Down over here. I watched to see how much everyone took, and I try to take the same amount. I'm just gonna bring it up here. And now, after I wrote this example, of course I have to add my interpretation. So I'm gonna write what I just told you orally. This means that Bud is not used to eating with a family like the people of the Great Depression, or we can say like most people, or like a lot of people. We don't know most, but we can say like a lot of people of the Great Depression. He had to have meals from a soup kitchen. All right, reader. So notice what I did to revise the work. I reread it. I thought, what am I doing well as a reader, and what are some things that I need to work on? And then one of the things that was obvious was the addition of text evidence, and not just any text evidence, but really specific text evidence that matched what I was trying to say. And then we made sure that we added interpretation to that text evidence. So you're going to go back into your stop and jot from yesterday. You're going to hit unsubmit, and then you're going to work on making your writing stronger and better. So good luck, everybody, and we can't wait to see the revisions you've come up with.